Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Yenny, your moderator for tonight's webinar organized by School of Health Sciences entitled Where Can a Medical Biotechnology Degree Take You? So tonight with us, we have our two alumni speaker, Miss Crystal, a current business development account manager, and she's the IMU alumni for MB113. And next we have Miss Gorwensi, currently a Masters of Science students in University of Groningen, Netherlands, and she's our alumni for MB120. So perhaps let us start with some housekeeping rule. So we have actually muted the microphone for all the attendees. And for all questions and feedback, please use the Q&A panel. We will have the Q&A panel at the end of the webinar. And this live webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be shared to our YouTube. Okay, so please allow me to do some program introduction before we proceed to our speaker's talk. Okay, so Bachelor of Applied Science Honors Medical Biotechnology. This is actually our 3-year honors degree. But I think what is more important than the duration is how you learn. Okay, although it's a 3 years, but how you learn is important. So we actually place a very strong emphasis on learning by doing. Throughout the program, students will be exposed to areas such as molecular biology and genetics, cell and tissue culture, medical microbiology and immunology, bioinformatics, omics technologies, drug discovery, precision medicine, as well as research methods and laboratory skills. But we also recognize that university shouldn't just prepare you to pass the exam, but it should also prepare you to what happens after your graduation. And therefore, we think internships is very important in part of the program. We want our students to experience the real biotechnology experience, understand how industry works, and start building the skills and professional networks that will help them to transition from the university into employment. So as you can see here, our students actually have opportunities across a very broad range of biotechnology sectors. For example, we have companies involved in medical diagnostics, lab equipments and reagents, as well as companies in pharmaceutical manufacturing and compliance. Okay, for students who are more interested in the data and technology side of the biotech, we also have opportunities in genomics, bioinformatics, and precision medicine. So, and biotechnology is actually much broader than just healthcare. Our students can also explore agricultural biotechnology, food biotechnology, and sustainable biotechnology through our few GTP partners like Cell Agritech, Greencom, Nanotech, as well as Good Morning. Okay, we also have exposure to areas such as stem cells, clinical research, and regenerative biotechnology. So the important point that I would like to share with our audience here today is that this is a program that does not just lead to just one type of career, okay? Because the biotechnology ecosystem is actually very diverse, and our internship gives students an opportunity to experience that ecosystem at the first hand. Okay, and sometimes that 6 months internship is also where the students will discover like this is actually the area that I want to build in my career in. So in my next slide, you'll see a snapshot, okay, of what our students who have been experienced, who has been able to experience through their internships, okay, not locally, but also universities and research institutions across the region, and also overseas like Taiwan, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, okay. So at a glance, having talked about the program and also the internship opportunities, so let's look at the questions that I'm sure many of you will be asking, like what does medical biotechnologists actually do? And if you see from my slides here, you would know that the answer is actually quite a lot. Okay, you can see that in here that we have career opportunities spans across several major areas. Well, you could work in diagnostic and laboratory sciences, for example, as laboratory scientist, application specialist, or technical support specialist. You could also move into the pharmaceutical industry, working in QC, QA, regulatory affairs, production, and validation. And for those who enjoy genomics and precision medicine, bioinformatics and data, there are actually opportunities, okay, as molecular biologists, genomics analysts, bioinformatics associates, and research scientists. So there are also growing opportunities in biotech and sustainable innovation. This will include like cell culture, bioprocessing, fermentation, and product development. So, and finally, to those who are actually interested in the clinical side, okay, there are actually opportunities in clinical research, regenerative medicine, and stem cell biotechnology. So I think the key message here is that medical biotechnology is not just one career, but it is an entire career ecosystem. And your interest can actually shape the direction within that ecosystem. Okay. So finally, I would also like to leave you with this news. Okay, it is what we want is not just giving the students the education, but we want to prepare the students for employment. Okay, so it is another thing when the employers recognize it. So IMU has actually received strong employer recognition through the Talent Bank Employers Choice Award, and medical biotechnology was actually recognized among the programs for receiving the 6 stars recognition for employability, okay, since last year. And for me, this is actually a very important message for the students and the parents, because when you choose a degree, please don't just look at what you will study, but also look at what you will be able to do with what you study. Okay, so without any further ado, let me welcome our first alumni speaker for sharing their journey in MB. Well, I would like to welcome Miss Gowensi. She's our alumni from MB 120. Her talks will be on from medical biotechnology to innovative medicine, my journey into translational research. So Wensi has developed a passion for translational biomedical research through her final year project and internship. And after graduation, she worked as a research and production executive scientist at a local cell therapy startup before pursuing a European joint masters in innovative medicine in Netherlands. In this webinar, she will share her journey from undergraduate studies to postgraduate education abroad, the challenges she encountered, and how the medical biotechnology program actually prepared her for her academic and professional career. So may I welcome Wensi? Yes, okay. I stop sharing.
Yes.
So Wensi, you can share your slides. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Wensi. Thank you, Dr. Yeni, for the short and sweet introduction. So remember the topic of the webinar today, where can a medical biotechnology degree take you? Personally, when I first entered this program, I definitely didn't have the answer to this question. And when you look at the program brochure, which you can download from the IMU website, you're like, oh, with this degree, I can do research, I can teach, I can start my own business, I can work in regulatory affairs, and also all the other things that Dr. Yeni has mentioned. The brochure and all the information you can get can show you all the different directions you could go into, but eventually you have to choose for yourself which doors you actually want to walk through, because at any one point of time you can only choose one path and try to excel in that. And my path ended up being quite different from what I initially imagined. So this part of the sharing is about where this medical biotechnology degree program took me and the experiences in the program that helped me get there. Okay, maybe I'll start by introducing some facts about myself. I am an alumna from MB 120, so I studied in IMU from 2020 to 2023. And after graduation, I worked for some time as an executive scientist at a cell therapy startup based in Betaling, Jaya. Then I pursued my dream master's degree abroad. That's where I am now. that we'll talk more about it a bit later. Okay, so I'm not sure how much everyone here knows about medical biotechnology. Just now, Dr. Yani also gave a very comprehensive overview, but this is the most concise definition that I can find, which I personally resonate with the most. It says that medical biotechnology is a subset of medicine and biotechnology that uses any living organism to come up with products that help us live longer and more productive lives. So as an individual who seeks meaning in the work that I do, this basic concept immediately caught my attention when I was looking for what degree I should study from IMU's website. I wanted to be part of the process that creates as well as offers solutions to patients, even though I do not directly deal with them. But what was studying medical biotechnology actually like at IMU? So if you ask me, in essence, I would say painful but transformative. I don't think anyone graduating from the program would disagree. In terms of the schedule, it looks very different from week to week. So you really have to be flexible. What this also means is that it's going to be very different from what most of us are used to from primary school and pre-university, where usually at the beginning of the semester you get a schedule and then you follow through this schedule throughout the entire semester. That's not what it's like studying here. But I think it's also a better reflection on how the real world is like when you start working as adults. Coming to my second point is that the lectures are pretty fast-paced in the sense that usually there's only 1 hour per topic. So if you have 6 hours of lectures that week, you would have finished studying 6 topics, very in-depth. And that is excluding all other teaching and learning activities, for example, tutorials, workshops, practicals, presentations, call sessions, and so on. So that leads me to my next point. The workload can sometimes really be crushing. It's just a very demanding program. There's a lot to learn in a very short time. I remember there was one semester where there was on average almost 40 submissions for only 14 weeks. But that's really a lot. But thankfully, you're not going to be in this alone. Through mutual suffering and laughter, you will build stronger ties with your peers. In fact, in my class, no one's absence goes unnoticed, including by our beloved lecturers, because they actually recognize you. They know your name, your looks, your behavior, and just the person that you are. Hence, sometimes you can get really heartfelt advice during your conversations with them, be it whether about your academic life, the struggles that you're going through right now, or if you would like some advice about your careers after graduation. And I think that this is a very undermined privilege, which many other programs don't have. And lastly, needless to say, with supportive peers as well as professors in a highly intense environment that IMU creates, you'll grow tremendously in ways that you couldn't have foreseen when you first embarked on this journey. So for instance, first, self-directed learning. No one will be spoon-feeding you anymore. So how much you learn depends on whether you put the effort and also how much effort you put to understand the difficult concepts that are being delivered to you in the lectures. And the second point is the analytical skills. So you will have a lot of practical sessions and you need to think how to interpret the different data that you get from your lab sessions and how you can write a good lab report out of it and draw useful conclusions. And the last part is planning skills. Because of the heavy workload, you will have so much to juggle at the same time. At some point, you will automatically unlock the skill of prioritization And before you know it, you may even be on YouTube learning how to be more productive and effective at learning or completing tasks. So whatever it is, all of these skills will stick with you no matter what you choose to do later on. And other than that, the science is also, of course, very cool. These are just some pictures that I have taken from the practical session that we had. I would say overall, the practical sessions covered a really broad scope of techniques, which is very helpful for me, the current students, as well as any young researcher who has not fixed a direction of research yet, because it allows you to explore more as well. And finally, the MB faculty at IMU has also designed a very comprehensive curriculum, as you can see, beyond core science modules, which you can more or less find in other biotechnology programs in other universities. This medical biotechnology program at IMU also encompasses modules like bioinformatics, structural biology, algorithm, data structure, omics, entrepreneurship, data analytics, quality management, and so on. So it's very comprehensive, and I think this enables the students to develop in a more well-rounded and up-to-date manner. Okay, but I personally think that the real experience that shaped me is my final year project, where I studied about how the pollutants could influence the ability of microbes to restore, remediate the environment. And this is when I got my first taste of actual research, where I struggled to get the same results, even though I did everything the same as before, where my life is also almost entirely oriented around my experiments, such that I have to come in on weekends and sometimes public holidays as well. And also where I have to constantly remind myself of the bigger picture and the bigger question that I'm trying to answer amidst of all the chaos of the small things that just didn't go right in the lab. And I think for me, the most valuable part of this final year project is that it gives me some sense on whether I like what I am doing, not just whether I like the project, the topic of the project itself, but also whether I like to do research in general. And when you figure all these things out along your journey, you can already start pivoting your career choices. Other than that, I've also published an original research paper and presented my final year project work at a scientific conference in Malaysia. But these were only bonus gains, which were made possible by my amazing thesis supervisors at IMU. They are really, really good at seeking for and spotting opportunities for their students. So if any opportunity like that comes along, please do not miss it. Another equally important experience for me is the internship, which I carried out at the National University of Singapore, working on the topic how a nano-sized product of stem cells could potentially help regenerate damaged cartilage and tendon. So for this internship, I didn't have a project of my own, but rather I worked directly alongside the PhD students and research assistants in the lab while I honed my research skills in other molecular biology techniques. And during the process, I've also met a lot of people, like sometimes even visiting scholars from other countries. And you just get a really nice international exchange of ideas. So after I finished my internship, there was a research assistant vacancy available in their lab. So I went through the interviews and everything, and they were happy to let me fill up this job. So that is when I realized that this medical biotechnology program at IMU has also prepared me for opportunities abroad without me noticing. After graduation, like I mentioned in the beginning, I worked as a research and production executive scientist at a cell therapy startup. It is an area which I really like and which I gradually found my passion for during the process of studying the degree, because while the program exposes you to a lot of topics, it also gives you enough flexibility in some modules for you to explore your own interests. Like for example, when you have to choose a topic of your own interest to write a review paper. And as you learn more in depth about the topic while you're trying to write it, you just know for yourself, okay, do I want to do something similar for like a postgrad or for a job? Or for me, the answer was yes, this is why I took this job. At the same time, this first job taught me something that university couldn't, is the fact that scientific ideas don't automatically become useful healthcare products. So there are always clinical, regulatory, and other commercial considerations that you need to take into account. To fuel my ambition in bridging the bench research to real-world applications, I chose to pursue a translational biomedical research program, which trains students with the skills and knowledge to excel in across disciplines, sectors, and also countries. And I think it was the foundation that I built during this medical biotechnology program, which gave me the confidence and skills to pursue this next step. And I was fortunate to secure a place in this program from a pool of around 1,400 applicants. It's very lucky in that sense. And right now, I have just completed my first year in the Netherlands. And for my second year, I will embark on a new adventure in Estonia. Okay. All in all, I think for the most important take-home message is that IMU's medical biotechnology degree did not determine my destination. Instead, it gave me the skills as well as the opportunities to keep opening new doors. Yes, thank you everyone for your attention, and I hope something came out useful.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Wensi, for your nice sharing. Okay, I'm sure there will be a lot of there will be many of our participants will take away from that session. So yeah, let's continue with our webinar tonight. So next we will have Crystal. She's our alumni MB113. So she will be talking on her topic on turning a medical biotechnology degree into a business development career. So yes, Crystal, I will pass the floor to you. Thank you. Oh, yeah, sorry. Before that, I would like to introduce Crystal to our participants here. So, Crystal is a graduate of IMU's Medical Biotechnology Program MB113. She has accumulated several years of experience in the pharmaceutical and ophthalmology industries and is currently a business development account manager at BD, a leading multinational medical technology company. So she brings valuable insights into the commercial and business development aspects of the healthcare and biotechnology sectors. Yeah. So I pass the floor to you, Crystal. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yanni. My mic is clear, right?
Yes,
Let
you're audible.
me share my screen. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm in full screen.
Yeah, good.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Yanni. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Crystal. Let me bring you through. Wansi has bring everyone with what happened during university time that I have kind of forgotten already since it has passed for quite some time. But I remember roughly when we graduated. I graduated. I think the common question that we have is usually what do I graduate as and how do I progress that into a career? So a bit of background. So I like biology and lab work as well. So that's why I think it leads me into choosing the job given comparison between biomedical, the other courses. So I think I preferred this one mainly because I like microorganisms a lot. So then for my internship, I did a lab intern, which is why the reason in Singapore for 3 months before graduation. I really like how the laboratory environment is being quiet. Then you'll be able to do your stuff. And I remember how we used to do tons of solution and some cryo freezing mice brain into glass slides that you investigate on them and do PCR and sorts like that. So I really love them. But I didn't quite like how Singapore vibe was done with me because it got into very dead routine. Like I wake up in the morning, then we rush to the lab, lunch, then we come back squeezing into the same MRT again. I didn't really quite like how the living style is. But so it got me into, upon the ending of my internship and closer to graduation, I was literally thinking what I should be doing. So it leads me into some crossroad. Like, do I wanted to actually bear with the lifestyle situation, like just squeeze into MRT and be like day to day? There's no particularly weekends because as we live outside, there's a lot of stuff that's coming in, like whether be cleaning up the house or doing laundry, some mundane work behind, then it comes Monday again. So that's when the routine become very dead and honestly, I didn't have enjoy much of the weekend in Singapore because it was hot and humid to go out. Then I didn't know who am I going out with. Like I don't see the point of the weekend in Singapore. So then it's either that I endure that and I continue master in neuroscience back then and work in the lab, which I really wanted when I first joined the course, or the other option is actually coming back to home and probably continue a master in the other university or continuing with IMU, particularly that time they do offer that, and getting grant or stipend. But it was there with the economic question that we always have. Does it actually sustain breathing itself? Then, or the third option is actually coming back to home when I'm closer to home, but I would have to look for another outcome. So it was kind of tad between. So I did had a gap year after graduation. I went Australia actually to do working holiday there because honestly I have no idea what am I graduating with because I wanted to end there in Singapore. I didn't want it to continue in another field, particularly that time. So I was really stretched. But obviously the reason of being stretched is actually because there's endless of possibility. I could actually do lab, I could do the other stuff as well. So then it was like I didn't know what is right at the time. And obviously it's a huge turning point of everyone's life upon graduation because that's when you decide your career, because that's when you would be starting to get gratification out of, let it be working or are you continuing studying. So that's when it was really tough because we needed that so-called right decision at that moment. Like, did I make the right decision? So at the crossroad, it ends up after I was coming back from Australia. Um, Miss Wong back then was our internship coordinator then. She was actually telling me to, she has been encouraging me to try on sales. But then particularly that time I was coming back to her, I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, what do you think I should do? I was actually asking advice from her. So she was really pushing hard for me to go into sales after a few rounds because this is one of the opportunity that came that time. But before even graduation, where we have that question and we were discussing it throughout the course itself, she was like, "You should try sales. You should try sales." I'm like, I'm not that type of person that particularly would goes to a person and ask, "Hey, do you think you would need this?" that sort of person. I mean, I did a few like part-time job in cafes and all, but that would be very passively. People would be coming in, knowing what they actually wanted to order and whatnot. So doing sales, it's another different thing to me at that time. So she was like pushing very hard, go try, go try. Because they were publishing as a intern back then, because they are looking for a science background graduate then. As a background side note, they never have anyone or they never did widely hire anyone from science background. So my seniors from sales in the industry now comes from various background. Some comes from business admin, some comes from finance, some was with public relationships. So there are all sorts of various background back then. So anyone who wanted to do sales was there being hired then. So this round with this particular MNC that I was trying with, the sales intern, they particularly wanted a science background graduate. So I was like, okay, so let's see, because I was there coming back from Australia, I still could not figure out what I wanted to do. So then I was like, okay, fine. I mean, I'll go and try it out just so that I would see, she see wrong in me. That time I would have to admit, because I was like, I'm not fit to it, but she keep asking me to try, like, go. I see something in you. I was like, no, like it's not mine. So fine. I was like, okay, let's go. Then you would see I'm not fitted to this. So then it's also once I enter, there's a few differences that you actually see a lot. So between learning the differences, it's how from uni days where you see everyone being very nicely to you, like, hey, how are you doing today? And things like that. They will be asking you upfront, what do you wanted to? So rather than that, you would have to ask the question yourself now. You can't be just waiting for them to, how do I go with this rather than you are waiting for someone to actually reach out and notice that you're having problem. I need to be asking the question to the right person now. So then that's where it's slightly different compared to how our uni time is. And the differences is that we also have deadline, though we have that in lecture day, but usually we would be asking with our batchmate, hey, how do you work this out? But that don't work in the work field anymore, because everyone has facing different situation and they are not all the same, and I can't be copying or referencing my batchmates homework now, so I have to do my work myself when I know who to ask to. And also because of me coming from a science background, it makes things a lot more easier. So for example, we could actually memorize, we used to memorize how multiplier works, right? Like 2 multiplies by 2 is equal to 4. We do that as well because from day to day in our work, we do communicate in science data quite a fair bit. Like if I'm convincing you to use this drug rather than the other one, why is it so? So it involves us a lot of data, which having a science background do makes it a lot more easier. So we could, coming back to the multiplier, we could actually memorize it, right? So the same how they are doing is actually memorizing the fact of data, like it's 64% lower compared to which group and which group. But when the question being thrown back from customer coming back to you, there's no way you could memorize it anymore. If they change the question rather than 2 multiplied by 2, now I'm asking you 1 multiplied by 4. The answer is still the same, but the questions of how they're asking would make them notice that you're actually memorizing, but not knowing the fact itself. So that makes a few difference between us coming from a science background than our seniors back then. So then with this, it actually life in corporate becomes easier. I find myself slightly better in reaching out to people then and there. So I was like, oh, it wasn't that bad then. So that's how I get into the corporate world there and then. So uh I know she's not here, but I do text her after that, was like, thank you so much, because I think Miss Wong did see something that I did not see myself, though I think I'm not fitted for the sales and marketing work, but I do then. But a few takeaway notes that I realized myself, or probably just to share with everyone here, is actually the attitude or the mindset or the personality that works everything in it. Because if I decided really not to take her advice, I wouldn't be there or here now. So it's also when I'm being not to say forced in it, but I am in it. So try to go along with the flow would helps to open my because I honestly have no idea what I'm doing that time. But be a bit open, listen throughout the course and also do observe because that's what they did to us. And now I'm doing it for my work. And so always be open to listen, not just rejecting, though I did. But yeah, that's what I learned throughout this. And things that I learned are never wasted because people will be asking what's the difference with me doing medical biotech compared to the others. Would help in the career. It's because I think things that we are learning are different, and mainly, particularly, the lecturers do make a huge difference here. Because if Miss Wong didn't reach out and really push me to where I am, I wouldn't be here saying that I am actually comfortable with sales and marketing now. So, and being applying the theories, and although I've loosened some of it throughout my way now, but it's never wasted. It just comes back very easily because as an adult, I think we see many people are afraid of falling down now, even in the same field. But I am grateful for having joining the courses because I feel that it's giving me a very good foundation that even if I fall down, I'll be able to rebound back. And I think that would be something that worth and worth considering because regaining to stand up again is more important than we are focusing on I fall down, I fell and I couldn't get up. So it's important that to have that capability to actually to come back, to stand back up. So if I got rejected, fine, then I'll look for another way. So I think with that, it concludes how things from uni days are still sticking with me now. And yeah, I think that would be my do that later with my best. Yeah. The Yanni?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Crystal, for sharing. Okay, it was so insightful and informative, and I really appreciate the time uh, that you and also Wensi took with us today. So now perhaps we can move on to our next segment on question and answer. Okay. Um, yeah. Okay. So far, maybe a questions from me first, because I think I got the point from both your presentation, but just maybe a refresher, okay. So looking back at your journey so far, was there actually a point when you realized the program could actually lead much more than just working in a lab? Okay, so I believe both of you can give a very, very good answers to this. Because definitely both of you, yeah, maybe for one C, yes, see in the lab, but yeah, let's hear from both of you. Perhaps we can start with Crystal first. Yeah.
Okay. So when I first joined, I didn't really honestly think that it would be translating into this,
Oh,
but I think things kind of work out for me. It helps in terms of when I remember particularly because in semester six we have something we call internship, or was it the preparation for interview or things like that. So I find that particularly interesting or insightful, and it stick with me when I was doing the interview for the sales intern back then when I first started with the first company. They do actually require me to apply and do a proper interview like how we do in the job interview. So I think it sticks a lot because there's a few points that Prof. Chin was mentioning. Then I was keeping them like keeping eye contact and probably not fidgeting a lot, things like that. That we had kind of prepared ourselves to be. I think that would be something different to bring along into corporate world. Yeah,
Yeah, so that would be like the soft skills that you have actually learned through the program.
correct,
Yeah, yes. I
correct.
do agree that soft skills sometimes is really a life skill. Okay. What about you, Wensi? Mm,
I think for me it would be uh same as Crystal during my internship as well. But
mm-hmm,
for me, it's more like when I begin to talk to more people, I know what other people are doing with a similar degree. Like some people are working as like in a hospital or in between with the universities and like as a lab manager to give training to students who are in charge of the procurement and stuff.
mm-hmm.
Or let's say when I talk to more people and then I hear from this visiting scholar that he has a friend who is working as a medical writer now. So you just talk to more people and learn from other people's experiences and about all the other opportunities. Yeah.
Very, very nice. Thanks, Wensi. I do agree with you, okay. Networking, chatting with more people, you get to learn some from them, from the advice that you may be getting, as well as yeah, their experience, just like what we are doing now. Yeah, sharing your experience to our audience today. But I actually saw a questions in the Q&A panel. Is a questions to both of you, that what is the most important skill that you girls learn as, I believe it's undergraduate students. Yeah. Since it's to both of you. Yeah. Skills that you both learned as a undergraduate students. So it kind of similar to our earlier questions regarding the skills, right? The soft skills and networking. But do you have more that you could actually share with our attendees here? Or we actually have Dr. Boon Hui here today. No? Okay.
I
Okay.
think probably I could take that because besides some
Uh-huh.
soft skills that we were mentioning just now, it's
Mm,
more also in statistics or very solid knowledge things that we do learn because when I was doing statistics back then I was like what has statistics has to do with whatever that I'm doing. I know it's all calculation and
mm,
possibility, but it was there for that moment every time I walk into that lesson was like, why am I learning this? Probably I wouldn't be doing this because it's all sort of computerized or having a set of formulas on its own. Then I was focusing more into biology kind of study or area than compared to a physics or chemist kind of area or direction. So I was like, every time I go in, it was like, what is this forest plot or whatsoever possibility has to do? Like, oh my goodness, that's another statistic course. But actually, it turns out to be nicely being working as a foundation, I would say, because I was something that I thought I would never be using it, and I am using them today.
mm. True, true. Because you're in business account, so you use a
Correct.
lot. That's applicable. Okay, I think the attendee actually clarified his questions. He meant like after upon your graduation. Yeah, it's not really
Mhm.
postgraduate, so it's like upon graduation. So I think we answered his questions, right? What about Wensi? Any additions that you would like to top up?
I think going back to the question that was asked, the most important skill that I learned
Mm,
after, I think probably is also a soft skill, like to to be critical when I get new information, not just believe in, okay, whatever the news say or what other people say, but you automatically want to find out how things work. Why does it work that way? And then I think it's just an attitude of learning that will allow you to go further.
Nice. Okay, then we have another question by Keshi. So his question is, are you guys satisfied with your current standing in the job market? As in, have your expectation been exceeded for this particular degree? Also, do you think technology or AI could have heavily impact your specific field of work? I would like to clarify that for both of you, your graduation has been like about a decade ago, right? So but yeah, never mind. You can just share your experience. What do you think at that moment upon your graduation? Do you think it's hard? Do you think it's difficult? And what is your expectation? Actually, has the program actually met your expectation or even exceeded that? Perhaps we can have a one see first.
Yeah, sure. Um, well, I would say the program has kind of exceeded my expectation because when I first entered, I had like mostly my impression of the program was mostly like lab stuff. But of course, when we have the modules, they go beyond that, like the non-typical ones. And I think that sets us pretty well in terms of competition with getting into the kind of job that we want. And do I think AI could have
Ah,
heavily impacted your field of work?
so like in research for your case.
I would say that for simple questions, sometimes asking AI works, but if you try to talk to AI more and you want to dig deeper, I sometimes they make up information and you have to check that on your own. So it's yeah,
Yeah, I think towards
that's just from my experience.
towards the end is how we actually use AI and the impact of maybe I can also share a bit lah, okay. As the program director, the current employability rate of this program is actually exceeding 92%. Okay, if I remember correctly, it's like way beyond 90%. Okay, within the 6 months tracking after our graduates convocation. Okay, so back to the second questions on AI. Well, it really depends on how we use it. I do think if we use it correctly, it can actually help us to save some of our time. Okay, so that is a I would say there's a good impact, okay, but definitely it will not be something that can be used to replace any career relevant to biotechnology because the biotech is all about research, okay. If you're not doing the lab work, you will not be able to get the findings, okay. So yeah, maybe we can listen from Crystal as well on this matter. Yeah.
Um, I just have a question while you were sharing that 92%. Am I one of them that bring add it to the 8% then?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Okay, of course, for students who actually venture into postgraduate studies, we considered that as well lah, under this statistic because as long as you are not taking a break or you are not unemployed, okay, then yes, that you will be added into that statistic. Okay, yeah,
Okay,
and it's
so
a
um,
long-term tracking definitely for us. Mm, okay.
uh, I am the first question. It's currently in the job market. I think I am quite satisfied because for over 10 years in the industry now. So what I came from as a background in terms of education do impact lesser now that they are tracking back my corporate experience rather than the education one. But for the first two company that I have interview with, they do see a lot, they value a lot more when they saw my CV that I graduate from medical biotech. They would be interested or actually do ask a bit questions about it, like what do you actually learn in the course and things like that back then. So then I think I'm happy with where medical biotech brought me to, I think. So, and it definitely exceeded the value or expectation I have because I didn't have much expectation rather than working in the lab before.
Mm.
So then, yes. The second one, it's on AI. I think to a certain extent, even let it be in postgrad or whether you are working in research or let it be like me, I don't think it would be heavily impacted because if you're doing research, without a human input into the AI, the AI won't be generating, will not be generating ideas of hypotheses. Probably you could have some crazy idea keying in into inputting into AI and ask them to come up with hypotheses or probably to advise way for you to carry out the research. But without human inputting the crazy ideas, AI wouldn't have that crazy idea. And the same goes for our field currently. If it's heavily impacted, less so, I don't really feel that, but we do rely on them answering simple questions like where do I get food for lunch, things like that. Yeah, but in terms of work overall, I don't see it impact a lot actually.
True, I agree. And in fact, actually, in research, we are incorporating AI to drive the research to make it faster. Okay, we use AI for computational biology prediction. Yeah, more to discovery. So I think the impact may be towards the end. I would say is a positive one if it comes to research lah. Okay, okay. Hope we have answered your question, Kashi. Okay, maybe the next one. So, what's the most promising sector within biotech that you think is gaining traction right now? Okay, so for this one, just like what I mentioned earlier, actually AI is really one of the current direction, and of course, it has been incorporated to all the diverse fields that we have been working. Okay, of course, in medical biotechnology, then we will have like gene editing. Okay, we will have like precision medicine, multi-omics. So all these are actually the next big thing lah. Okay, AI plus biotech, basically. Yeah. Okay. Maybe Wensi, since you are like doing research in, yeah, what do you think? What do you think? The sector within biotech that is actually gaining traction.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with what you say about AI plus biotechnology because where like at the University of Groningen, they have a lot of research groups at their medical center, and a lot of projects we can see nowadays have some incorporation of like what they were originally doing with machine learning to make things faster and things like that. So I think you're definitely right.
Thanks, Wensi. Right. So maybe the next questions. What advice could you give the current undergraduate students when it comes to employment? Any like a final piece of advice to your juniors when it comes to employment? Perhaps Crystal?
Uh, oh, some advice. I think I'm the type that leans a lot more to pursue where my interest would go. Pretty much what I am doing now or what particular position I'm choosing now, it's based on interest. So a piece of advice that I could give is don't limit yourself too much, but don't overthink too much as well because you'll never know when opportunities come. So probably to build your foundation nicely and shape yourself as how you want it to be. Like for example, I am currently learning Korea or I am taking up other online courses actually that might not be relevant. Like I am learning psychology. It's not relevant to what I am doing now. It's just mainly because of interest. But one day, like I've mentioned before, things learned are never wasted. You never know one day I'll be using them because slowly I think psychology comes in a part as things go now because one day eventually I'll be promoted and I'll be hiring, right? So one of that would be I'll be able to use that to see if that person is the right candidate or not. But I wasn't learning because I am expecting myself to work as a hire manager, not because of that. It's just out of interest. But I don't think that's harm for you to learn more based on your interest because I think that's when you find learning interesting. And as things go, then with more things that are learned, opportunities do come and you will find yourself you are prepared for whatever opportunities that comes.
Mm, I agree. So it's more like lifelong learning. Okay, it's lifelong learning. Continuously to improve ourselves, start the networking. Okay, before we really need a job or the employment, and yeah, all in all is to develop our own portfolio. So I agree that in the end it's also something that must be aligned with our interests lah. If your interest is in business, then what you're going to learn is definitely something should be aligned with that in order to make yourself shine and yeah, you're able to outcast the others lah. Okay, right. Maybe for Wensi, do you have any advice also to the current UG students when it comes to employment?
I think probably other than in doing like working towards your interests, also you shouldn't let go of any opportunities to achieve beyond the classroom when they come over to you. Like for instance, when you're like when you're doing your final year project and then you generated some data, you got some conclusions out of it, and then your supervisor may look at it like, hey, there's a conference coming up in the next 2 months, and your supervisor thinks that you should go and present your work there. And then I would say to anyone who gets the opportunity, just say yes and take the opportunity and go. That's also a way of building your portfolio. Um, that's also what makes you different from other graduates that may only have to show their CGPA or something on their CV. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't just look into the CGPA nowadays, but also your other achievements and then recognition, right? What are the soft skills that you have actually learned? Okay, due to time, maybe we can take one last question. So, okay, we have a one last question anyway. So, what are the biotech jobs that are mostly sought out for? Hmm, any idea? So, our two alumni speakers today, maybe Wensi. Any idea on what your peers are actually currently doing?
You ask me my peers over here, they are very enthusiastic about research, like still in research.
Okay.
Yeah. But I know when I graduated from IMU, some of my peers ventured into sales like Crystal.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. So besides research, studying postgraduate business, we do have other fields. It may not be like so not obvious, but actually all these positions are very important. As I mentioned in my presentation earlier, it's more like building the ecosystem, like a QC, QA officer, regulatory affairs officer, clinical research associate, okay, R&D. Yes, all these are actually a job quite well sought after, I would say. Okay. Okay. Hope we have answered your questions. Okay. So that's all for our webinar talks today. And I hope everyone have a good evening and thank you so much.